If you're over 60, there are 3 exercises standing between you and a wheelchair. Not medication, not surgery, 3 specific movements done a few minutes a day. Here's what nobody tells you about aging. You don't lose your independence in one dramatic moment. It doesn't happen the day you fall. It happens years before that, in 100 small moments you probably didn't even notice. The jar lid that suddenly feels tighter. The stairs that make you pause and grab the railing, just in case. The moment you sit down on the couch a little too fast because your legs gave out the last few inches on their own. Those aren't just getting older, those are messages, and most women ignore them until the message gets a lot louder. I want to be honest with you before we go any further. The statistics around aging and strength are not gentle. Every year, more than 1 in 4 adults over 65 in the United States experiences a fall, according to the CDC. That's not a small number tucked away in a medical journal. That's tens of millions of people, most of them women, because women are more likely than men to suffer fall-related fractures after 60. And falling once makes you significantly more likely to fall again. It becomes a cycle. Fear leads to less movement leads to weaker muscles lead to another fall. But here is the piece of this story that almost nobody talks about, and it's the reason I wanted to make this video. Falling isn't really the root problem. Falling is the symptom. The root problem is what's happening underneath the surface, quietly, for years before that fall ever happens, a process most women have never even heard the name of. It's called sarcopenia. It's the medical term for age-related muscle loss, and it is one of the most under-discussed health issues facing women after 60. Starting around your 30s, you begin losing small amounts of muscle mass every year. It's slow enough that you don't notice at first. But research on sarcopenia shows that this rate of loss speeds up significantly after 60, and strength can decline even faster than muscle size does. That's an important distinction. You might look roughly the same in the mirror while your actual functional strength, your ability to catch yourself, to push yourself up, to carry something heavy without straining, is quietly draining away. But at the same time, something else is happening to your skeleton. Bone density naturally declines with age, and for women that decline accelerates sharply after menopause, when estrogen, a hormone that helps protect bone, drops. According to the Bone Health and Osteoporosis Foundation, roughly 1 in 2 women over 50 will break a bone in her lifetime because of osteoporosis or low bone density. Read that again, not 1 in 50, 1 in 2. So here's the picture. Weakening muscles, thinning bones, and a nervous system that, without regular challenge, gets slower at reacting when your body needs to catch itself. Put those 3 things together, and you have the real reason falls happen, and the real reason so many women lose their independence far earlier than they need to. Now here's the good news, and I mean this sincerely. None of this is fixed. None of this is a life sentence. Muscle responds to demand at any age. Bone responds to load at any age. Your balance system can be retrained at any age. There are documented cases of people in their 80s and 90s significantly improving strength and balance with consistent, simple resistance work. Age is not the barrier here. Inactivity is the barrier. And the good news inside that is, inactivity is something you can change starting today, with no gym membership and no equipment. Most advice you hear about staying healthy after 60 focuses on walking. And to be clear, walking is genuinely good for you. It's good for your heart, your mood, your blood sugar. But walking alone does not meaningfully build muscle, and it does very little to strengthen bone density or retrain the specific balance reactions that prevent a fall. Walking keeps you moving. It doesn't necessarily keep you strong. Those are 2 different things, and the difference matters more than most people realize. What actually protects your bones, your balance, and your independence is targeted resistance, asking specific muscles to work against a load, even a small one, on a regular basis. That's the signal your body needs. Muscle pulling on bone tells bone to stay dense. Deliberately challenging your balance tells your nervous system to stay sharp. This isn't complicated science, it's basic physiology, and it works at any age you start. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through 3 specific exercises. Each one targets a different piece of the puzzle, the muscles that let you stand and rise without struggle, the muscles that keep you steady on your feet, and the reflexes that catch you before a stumble turns into a fall. You don't need a gym. You don't need equipment. You need a sturdy chair, a wall or countertop nearby, and a few minutes, a few times a week. Before we get into it, tell me in the comments how old you are and where you're watching from. I read every single comment, and it genuinely helps to see how many people this reaches. Now, let's start with exercise number 1. Exercise 1, the sit to stand. This might be the single most underrated strength exercise for women over 60, and I say that because it looks so plain that people dismiss it. It's just standing up from a chair, right? Except from a physical therapy standpoint, this movement is closer to a full-body strength assessment than a simple daily task. It's often used in clinical settings specifically to measure lower body strength and predict fall risk in older adults, because the muscles it uses are the exact muscles that determine whether you can get off a low couch, out of a car, or up off the floor without help. The main muscles working here are your quadriceps at the front of your thighs and your glutes, the large muscles of your buttocks that are frankly one of the most important muscle groups for maintaining independence as you age. Supporting them are your hamstrings, your core, and even the small stabilizing muscles around your ankles, all firing together to control the movement instead of just letting gravity do the work. Here's the quiet warning sign I want you to pay attention to. If you've noticed yourself pushing off with your hands every time you stand up, or rocking forward 2 or 3 times to build momentum before you rise, that's not just a habit. That's your body compensating for weakness that's already there. It's not something to be embarrassed about, it's information, and it tells you exactly where to start. Here's how to do the sit to stand safely. Sit toward the front edge of a sturdy, stable chair, nothing on wheels, nothing soft. Plant your feet flat on the floor, roughly hip-width apart, with your toes pointing forward rather than turned out to the sides. Cross your arms over your chest, or let them rest lightly on your thighs. Try not to rely on your hands if you can help it. Lean your chest slightly forward over your knees, then press through your heels and stand up, using your thighs and glutes to drive the movement rather than momentum. Once you're standing tall, pause for a second, then lower yourself back down slowly and with control. Aim for about 3 seconds on the way down instead of just dropping into the seat. Start with 8 repetitions. If that feels manageable, rest for a minute and do a second set. That's plenty to start. Aim to do this 3 to 4 times a week. If you're worried about balance, position the chair with its back against a wall, or do this movement near a countertop where you can hover a hand nearby for reassurance without actually pulling yourself up with it. As you get stronger, progress gradually. First, work up to 10 or 12 repetitions per set. Later, slow down the lowering phase even further, 4 full seconds instead of 3, which increases what's called time under tension and builds strength more efficiently. Eventually, some women progress to doing this without using their hands or arms at all, which is a strong sign of genuine lower body strength returning. Why does this one exercise matter so much? Because it directly loads your hips and thigh bones, 2 of the most common sites for fracture-related injuries in older women, which helps support bone density exactly where it's needed most. Because the strength pattern it builds is almost identical to the pattern your body needs to recover from a stumble instead of collapsing into a fall. And because being able to stand up unassisted is, quite simply, one of the clearest markers of staying independent as you age. Exercise 2, the standing side leg raise. This second exercise addresses something that walking essentially never trains, and it's a gap that a lot of women don't realize they have until it becomes a problem. Most falls aren't people pitching straight forward or tipping straight backward. Most falls happen sideways, a shift in weight, a moment of instability when stepping off a curb or turning quickly, and the body doesn't have the strength to correct itself in that direction. The muscles responsible for that sideways stability are called the glute medius and glute minimus, smaller muscles on the outer side of your hip that most people have genuinely never heard of, but that physical therapists pay very close attention to in older adults. These muscles work every single time you take a step, because for that brief moment when one foot is on the ground, they're the ones keeping your pelvis level instead of letting it drop to one side. When they're weak, that drop happens, often so subtly you can't feel it happening, and over months and years it contributes to hip pain, knee strain, and lower back fatigue, on top of making side-to-side stumbles much more dangerous. Here's how to strengthen them. Stand next to a sturdy chair or countertop and rest one hand on it lightly, again for confidence, not for actual support. Stand tall with your standing legs straight but not locked, and keep your torso upright without leaning to either side. Slowly lift your opposite leg straight out to the side, only about 12 to 18 inches off the ground. Higher is not better here, and lifting too high usually means you've started leaning your torso to compensate, which defeats the purpose. Keep your toes pointing forward the entire time, rather than letting the leg rotate outward. Lift for about 2 seconds, hold briefly, then lower with control over about 3 seconds. Start with 8 repetitions on one side, then switch legs. 1 to 2 sets per side is enough when you're starting out, and 3 days a week is a good frequency. If your balance feels shaky, shorten the range of motion. If you feel this working after just a few reps, that's completely normal. This muscle group is chronically undertrained in most people, at any age. As it gets easier, progress by increasing to 10 or 12 repetitions, then slow the lowering phase down further. Eventually, once you feel steady, you can try doing the movement without holding on to anything at all, which challenges your balance and strength simultaneously. This exercise matters because it trains pelvic control, which is the foundation of walking safely on any surface, especially uneven ground like gravel, grass, or a sidewalk with a slight tilt. It also reduces uneven stress on your hips and knees during everyday walking, and it directly improves your ability to recover your balance if you're bumped, jostled, or catch your foot on something unexpectedly. Exercise 3, the single leg stand. This is the one that ties everything together, and it's also the one people tend to avoid, not because it's dangerous, but because it's humbling. It shows you immediately and honestly exactly where your balance stands right now. This exercise isn't primarily a strength movement. It's what's sometimes called a proprioceptive or neuromuscular exercise, which is a technical way of describing something very simple. It trains the communication line between your brain, your muscles, your joints, and your inner ear, the internal system that tells your body where it is in space without you having to look down and check. That system naturally becomes less sharp with age if it isn't regularly challenged, and research on balance and aging consistently shows that reduced single-leg standing time is associated with meaningfully higher fall risk in older adults. This isn't about becoming an athlete. It's about reaction speed. When you trip, you don't have time to consciously think through a recovery plan. Your body reacts automatically, and that automatic reaction is exactly what this exercise trains. Here's how to do it. Stand near a sturdy surface, a counter or a heavy, stable chair, with one hand hovering close by, not gripping it. Shift your weight fully onto one foot and really feel your whole foot pressing into the floor. Slowly lift your other foot just a few inches off the ground. You don't need height, just enough that your weight is fully on one leg. Keep your eyes forward and your breathing relaxed rather than holding your breath, which people often do without realizing it. Hold for 10 seconds if you can. Then lower your foot gently and switch sides. Start with 3 repetitions per side. If 10 seconds feels genuinely difficult, 5 seconds is a completely reasonable place to begin. There's no shame in that number, only useful information about where you're starting from. As it becomes easier, work up gradually to 15 seconds, then 20. Later, and only once you feel steady and confident, some women try closing their eyes for a few seconds while balancing, which removes visual input and forces the inner ear and joint sensors to work harder. That progression should come much later and only near something sturdy to hold on to. This exercise is valued so highly because single-leg balance time is one of the simplest, most predictive measures of fall risk that exists, arguably more revealing than many more expensive assessments. It rebuilds confidence from the inside, not through encouragement, but through actual measurable capability. And it teaches your body to correct itself automatically the moment something unexpected happens, which is ultimately what prevents a stumble from becoming a fall. Let's bring this all together. The sit to stand strengthens the muscles that let you rise, sit, and move without struggling or needing to grab onto something. The side leg raise stabilizes your pelvis and hips, protecting your balance during ordinary walking on any surface. And the single leg stand retrains your nervous system so that when your balance actually gets challenged in real life, your body reacts before you even have time to think about it. Together, these 3 movements cover the 3 things that actually determine long-term independence after 60: muscle strength, bone-loading resistance, and balance reaction time. And they do it without a gym membership, without special equipment, and without significant injury risk when done correctly and progressed gradually. One more thing before I let you go, because I think it might be the most important part of this whole video. Consistency matters more than intensity. You do not need to push yourself to exhaustion for this to work. In fact, pushing too hard, too fast, especially with balance work, increases your risk of the very falls you're trying to prevent. What actually changes your muscles, your bones, and your nervous system over time is showing up regularly, a few minutes, a few days a week, for months. That's genuinely how the body adapts, at 65, at 75, and beyond. If you've noticed yourself hesitating on stairs, pushing off with your hands to stand up, or avoiding uneven ground because you don't quite trust your footing, please don't treat that as something to feel discouraged about. Treat it as useful information. It's telling you exactly where to start, and it means there is real, meaningful room for improvement starting today. Before you go, I'd love to know, which of these 3 exercises do you think you need most right now? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely read them all. And if this was helpful, consider subscribing because we cover practical, evidence-based guidance like this regularly, focused specifically on helping women stay strong, steady, and independent for as long as possible. Your body is still very capable of adapting. It just needs the right kind of